Thank you all for coming. Welcome to this gala event tonight. My name is Jack Burnett. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Peterborough Chamber of Commerce. It's my honor to welcome you on behalf of our Board of Directors and our 350 members from throughout the Monadnock region. As you know, we're here to present 3 awards tonight. Citizen of the Year to Pat Boyd. Business of Leader of the Year to Ken Christian. And oops. Oops. All right, enough of the political joke. I can see it's going to be one of those days. One of our several church members is All Saints Church, which is a vibrant member of our community. We are blessed them to have them as a member of our chamber. And this time I'd like to introduce the director, the Reverend Adrian Robbins Cole, who will give the invocation. Reverend.
So the invocation this evening is taken from one of the ancient merchant guilds of the city of London, where I am from. So let us pray. O Lord God, whose dwelling is in the eternal city, vouchsafe to protect this earthly city of Peterborough and the towns and villages which surround it. And herein we pray thee to bless and prosper the Chamber of Commerce and all its members, and pray for its prosperity of its trade and the spiritual and temporal well-being of its citizens. Endue thy servants with those gifts which shall fit them for the due discharge of their duties, and make them to be faithful in all things. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Now we are delighted that you could be here tonight. Thank you. We are also very thankful for this evening's gold sponsor, Public Service of New Hampshire. We are appreciative of all the support that they always give us, and I know there are a number of them here tonight, so thank you to them. And it's funny, I'll show it to you later, Bonnie. I was going to mention Bonnie Carrillo's name. Bonnie, the division manager, is here. Bonnie, wave your hand. Thank you. Silver sponsors are always strong supporters of our chamber too. Of course, the Monadnock Community Early Learning Center, Rivermead, and the Scott for our home. And I should have said that properly, the Scott Farmer home. For those of you linguistic aficionados. Now, I mentioned it before. I did want to talk about a certain person just really quickly. Alan Goose. Alan Goose has been on several chamber event committees. He's personally responsible for maintaining our town bulletin board down outside the townhouse. That's his dog. We believe he's the youngest full-time, part-time volunteer. He started when he was 13. How old are you now? 15? Let's give it up for Alan. And of course, we all know that as our chamber, we do many, many things every month. Newsletters, email blasts, luncheons, breakfasts, committee meetings, and that doesn't even begin to touch on the scores of people who call us, email us, walk through our door, and accost us on the street about whatever. And believe me, I just want to say that there's no way on earth that we could manage all these operations if it weren't for our operations manager, Pam Lorimer. Pam? Stand up and people ask me questions tonight, I say, I don't know. And I know. Pam knows. Of course, 4-Star Catering, I think, has done another bang-up job tonight. And as always, the venerable Monadnock Country Club, led by Bev Moncton, appears to have taken like a mulligan on its existence or something. But as golf courses go, it's a great place to be, and we're thankful to be here. Okay. Our first presenter, what we're going to do is move on to the presentations. The first one is Citizen of the Year. Our first presenter tonight is Mr. Bob Rue, a resident of Peterborough for 24 years and holder of a Master in Science of Management from Antioch. Bob is the principal and co-founder of Myers Rue Training and Consulting. He has had many clients over the years, including Boston Consulting Group, ExxonMobil, Williams College, Metropolitan Life, and so on. He's an adjunct professor of leadership and other subjects at Antioch. He's also one of the founding members of Actors Circle Theater, and he has served on or is serving on the boards of the Peterborough Players, Peterborough Historical Society, and the Monadnock Area Transitional Shelter. He's also on the advisory board of the Monadnock Center for Violence Prevention. During the ice storm of 2008, Bob called Pat and Bob, the other Bob, to ask if they had power and were okay. He expected to invite them over, but because it's certainly more cheery in the dark with friends. As it turned out, Bob and Pat had a generator, a really big generator that lit their entire home. So the tables were turned, and the boys invited Bob and Lily, Bob's wife, were to their home, where they ended up spending 5 days with the boys, their son Michael, and 4 dogs, and so on. And the amazing thing about it is they're all still friends, so it was good. So, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our Citizen of the Year, let me introduce to you Mr. Bob Rue. Bob?
Thank you, Jack. Good evening, everybody. It's always nice to call neighbors and friends who you think might be in trouble so they can rescue you. That's the way it worked out. And yes, we're still friends. I am thrilled and honored to introduce Pat White, Peterborough's 2012 Citizen of the Year. I'm more than honored to consider her a close friend, along with her husband Bob, who supported my family and I in so many ways over the years because of their friendship and their generosity toward their general community. As I was thinking about how I was going to do this, and I kept thinking, this isn't hard, Bob, you're working with great material, how hard can this be? What kept popping back in my mind was sports analogies, which I know several of you hate, but here comes. Legendary sports greats like Magic Johnson in basketball, Lou Gehrig in baseball, Tom Brady in football, all share a common distinction. And that is that they play the game in such a skillful and inspirational manner that their teammates raise their own quality of play. The team is better for these players of such skill and knowledge. And that kept recurring. That's what Pat does with organizations. It doesn't matter whether she's an employee or a volunteer. Certainly her history in Peterborough, serving as a volunteer at MCH on the boards of the Peterborough Players, the Lyceum, and the Monadnock Community Early Learning Center, shows us that Pat raises everyone's game through her commitment and her example. To illustrate, I met Pat in 2001 when, at the recommendation of Audrey Cavallo, I recruited Pat to serve on the Board of Trustees at the Peterborough Players. I had been a trustee myself for a grand total of 6 months, and I desperately needed some direction. I'll focus on the Peterborough Players and my association with Pat there because that's how I've seen her work. That's how I've observed her. This is not to shun the Lyceum or shun any other organization she's been a part of, and there have been many. But this is the one I know about because I've watched her in action with this one. I worked on the Board Development Committee with Pat for 4 years until I completed my tenure with the board in 2005. Together we recruited new trustees and board officers, facilitated strategic planning retreats, installed committee charters with annual goals and objectives, formalized the new trustee orientation process, measured trustee satisfaction twice a year, and put in place the early stages of succession planning for the managing and artistic directors. And that's just part of it. From 2001 to 2005, some improvements included, and this is not inclusive, Keith, permanent installation of padded seats. For those of you who remember the folding padded seats, automatic sprinklers installed throughout the entire facility to protect the barn from fire, because as any of you who have been there know, if that place catches fire, adios. And before we got the sprinklers involved, installed, that was a real concern. Expansion of the offices, kitchen, and restrooms, installation of risers in the theater to improve audience views of the stage, and launched a major fundraising campaign, which raised the funds necessary to expand the backstage area, add flat space above the stage, rebuild the stage itself, and the orchestra pit and trapdoors. These improvements were very important for the players and for our audiences, because it led the players to gain the ability to stage shows that they had never been able to do before and attract additional talent that we had never seen walk our stage before. Some business results for those of you interested during that same period of time. Ticket sales increased by 21%. Overall budget increased by 26%. Contributions rose by 53%. Board donations increased by 256%. And the board membership increased from 12 to 15, which was a full complement of the board. Now, clearly, several of you out there are sitting there saying, but Pat didn't do this all by herself. And you're right, she did not. Certainly Bob Peterborough gets an awful lot of credit for being chair of the committee of the Board of Trustees for a period of that time. Huge credit. And it was my pleasure to work with people of this kind of talent. But it was Pat's commitment and skill that raised everyone else's game. And that was the point. After I left the board, Pat became secretary, chair of board development, chaired the annual auction committee, and then served as board president. And that was all within the next 2 years, when she left in 2007 after completing her tenure. In 2010, while having dinner at a former board member's home, he said to me, you know, we were really a very lucky board. I mean, we had some really talented people who worked together extraordinarily well. I merely looked at him, smiled, and said, Charlie, luck had very little to do with it. It was having the right people in the right positions at the right time, and then being able to lead by example, which is exactly what this woman does everywhere she's been. The story illustrates how Pat works. She doesn't care a whit about taking credit for her impact on things. Her focus is on results and sharing the credit with her colleagues. She understands the power contained within the community to pull together to get things done. Then she moved on to the Lyceum Board, the ad hoc Community Early Learning Center Board. Pat simply inspires the rest of us who work to raise the level of our game. And that's everything in leadership. It's my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce you to Peterborough's 2012 Citizen of the Year and my most wonderful friend, Pat.
any credit for the things I did not do. With Keith's leadership of the players and the other board members, including people like Rick Hance, players is where it is today. Hooray. My first real acknowledgement tonight must be to the Chamber of Commerce and to the mysterious process places me before you this evening. My first thought on hearing news from Jack Burnett was disbelief, comparing my contributions to those of the Runyons and the Von Mertens and the Twitches, Gordon Kemp, Linda Brenna, Bob Taft, Dorothy Peterson, Audrey White, produced in me a sense of inadequacy. But Jack cheerfully insisted the decision had been made, so here I am, humbled and grateful to be so recognized. I'm grateful too for my family and friends, some of whom have traveled considerable distances to be here tonight. With love, support, and friendship have encouraged me always. Thank you. I guess my story begins with my mother contemplating what to do with a 13-year-old daughter for the summer months. She suggested volunteering in the hospital, to which she patiently drove me and picked me up, a 25-minute ride each way for her. I put in 40 hours a week at the hospital for 4 summers, rotating through the various departments, serving as interim secretary to the CEO, working in the office, for example, that placed foreign medical transcripts, and during that 4th summer, doing medical transcription. What did I gain from that experience? Confidence that one day I could be successful in an adult world, and the understanding that there were many different jobs out there that I knew nothing about. College, marriage, and the family came next in my chronology. In early 1964, my husband lost his job, which necessitated a move to North Jersey and away from our friends. We moved into a small development, but neither there nor at church, nor at organizations like the Women's Club, could I find true friends. Time passed, and our eldest started school. She was eligible at age 7 to become a grounding scout. I was trained to teach, and so I took on a troop of ground. And lo and behold, my loneliness problem was solved. Suddenly I found the women who had been in town all along, but whom I couldn't locate by myself. Volunteering gave me friends, beginning with those small dragons and their mothers. The Girl Scout experience led to Cub Scouts, and then in a rather natural progression to the PTA, to the elected school board, and the town council in Woodcliff, Lake Woodcliff. Again, especially in the school board and council experiences, I received a great deal in return in the organizational communication skills acquired, which ultimately led to my first job at Columbia University. For years, I had on my refrigerator a picture of a confused face with the caption, "Just as I learned all the answers, they changed all the questions." Ours was a swing generation. When we married, few women were working outside the home for money. My husband and my first truly angry disagreement as young marriage was whether I would work someday. However, 20 years later, by the end of the 70s, the expectation was that more, if not all, women would be working. That thinking coincided with our family tea, since my husband began his business in 1979. Thanks to dear friends, I found employment at Columbia University, for Presbyterian Medical Center site. Volunteer activity, including running for the school board and later the council, was juggled with commuting to New York and 14 children. Bob and I became adept at checking what we called one of those flexibility quotes for the day. Fast forward to 1992, and our move to Peterborough. After getting settled in on purpose and friends, such positive reinforcement lay in turn to employment at Monadnock Community Hospital, as well as donating to role players sports during hospital and Monadnock Summer Life University, and finally, Monadnock Community Early Learning. I've always enjoyed participating in the group process. I love what happens when you bring to the table a group of people with different talents, skills, interests, and contacts. If you're fortunate, there will be some professionals, employees, administrators, who know how the organization works, who run the day-to-day operations. But sometimes, I just like skill. Volunteers must take the full responsibility. Begin with an organization that knows and has defined its purpose in a clear mission statement. Add people with the necessary skills and talents who can even that organization, and you have the potential for great success. At the very least, the organization will benefit from good stewardship. At the best, the organization will grow and prosper. It was a happy surprise to learn along the way that by getting these previously much more than we did. Satisfaction to me appeared in the wider Peterborough community in various classes. A balanced, interesting series of lectures at the Lyceum, the solids connected into a hospice center, and the players of successful golfers, with a bar renovation on time for the next season. The startup of a much-needed playground renovation at the Monadnock Community Early Learning. The gifts received include friendship, initiated and strengthened, knowledge of a different sphere of life, skills acquired, confidence from successfully accomplishing the task, inclusion in the wider community, and the pleasure of being part of the energy of the community. I've been thinking about the fabric of the wider Peterborough community. You know the real fabric is comprised of wood and weft, vertical and horizontal threads that when combined create a fabric of strength, beauty, color, and pattern. Imagine then that the war thread and weft threads of the fabric represent the individual people in the community, again with their different skills and needs. Woven together, those threads give the community a particular culture, the elements that create the individual personality of the various counties. Predominant certain traits in the population is why Peterborough is from Hancock to Street. Each town's fabric is unique. Regardless, there are amazing opportunities for activities. Whether your interests are artistic, educational, musical, health-related, theological, environmental, financial, you name it. There's a place for your interest to be nourished and to talent here. Think about where your particular talent can strengthen the fabric of the Peterborough community. We'll be glad you did at this young man this weekend. When you do volunteer, recognize that you need a support system, reliable, enthusiastic committee, or board colleague who attends meetings and does exactly what he has committed practice, and the team parent will advise. The boss will allow you to be late. The husband will understand why dinner is late. Which brings me back to gratitude to my family and friends who have been there for me from the start. I'm grateful for the support system and for the opportunities that I've had to decode my contribution and be meaningful.
token of appreciation for Matt from the chamber and from the community. I'm gonna open it up. There you go. Congratulations, Pat. Thank you, Bob, for doing that. That was a great job. I'm going to mention really quickly that when we talked with Monadnock Community Early Learning Center, one of our silver sponsors, you have the opportunity to have a banner or a sign or something like that, and they said, we don't do banners, we do other stuff. And so that's what they did over there for Pat. So I'm sure they spent a lot of time on it. That's the type of people we're dealing with here. I wanted to mention the mysterious process, which I always do. Our business leaders of the year and citizens of the year are chosen. There's the Our business leaders and citizens of the year are chosen by a committee that is secret. And it's made up of chamber members and people outside the chamber. No one, very few people know who's on it. And the process is entirely confidential. The one thing that has been consistent throughout the years, and this remains so today, is that the winners, the people we're honoring tonight, and the people who stood before and were honored in the past, are chosen solely on their merit and their contributions to the community and the business community. That's the only thing. It doesn't matter how long they've been here, it doesn't matter whether they're rich, poor, it doesn't matter, nothing else is taken into consideration. The only other thing that has to happen is that people need to be nominated. And so, both of our winners tonight, I hesitate to use the word winners because everybody's a winner here, but both of our honorees were nominated by numerous people. There are other people in this room who were nominated. There are other people in this room who nominated other people. And no one ever knows. And that's the way it should be because we have really probably thousands of possible honorees. So that's the process. And it's not done with smoke and mirrors, but mirrors and smoke. Okay? All right. We're going to move on here. Our next presenter is Ted Leach. Ted is the founder and publisher of Leach Newspapers, Inc., which formerly owned the Monadnock Ledger, the South Carolina Messenger, and the Nantucket Beacon, which was recognized as the top weekly newspaper in the country in 1992. Ted is the founder of the New England Marionette Opera. He's a former state legislator, and he's now the co-chair of the New Hampshire Carbon Coalition. He's president of the Leach News Group and the chair of the Harris Center for Conservation Education in Hancock. Ted was the second recipient of our Chamber's Business Leader of the Year Award and is a former executive director of our chamber. He lives on the shore of Powder Mill Pond in Hancock with his wife Beverly and their dog Bagel. A basketball junkie, he says he is grateful for our careful scheduling of tonight's affair to ensure that it didn't conflict with March Madness. We aim to please. Ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our Business Leader of the Year, let me introduce Mr. Ted Leach.
fires. Thank you very much. Hope I don't electrocute myself in the process. Rob and Rue, we should have gotten together. I would have taken this tie off in a heartbeat. The clip hasn't broken yet. This is a little audience test here. We're just going to test your awareness. Word for the day. Raise your hands if this rings a bell. Etch a sketch. Okay, this is going to work. Before I start, I want to relate something personal. I've done this many, many times. I think every one of the citizens here introduced me. I've done a speech before, but somewhere in the past. And I love doing this opportunity to probe into the life of the recipient, find out a bit about them, and come back and share our findings with you. But in doing this one, I had a really nice experience. When I called 90-year-old Doris Heckberg, sitting over there, and we had a delightful conversation for about 20 minutes, and Doris, you lit up my month. Thank you very, very much. Are there any other Bellows Nichols employees here tonight, either past or present? Just raise your hands. Now, that's good to see you here. Tomorrow you can finally get your paychecks. When I do a gig like this, I call a recipient, I talk to members of the family, friends, and try to get a sense about the honoree. This time I wanted to talk to Bellows Nichols employees, because there's so many of them. And I knew that they could get me some background on the honoree and the dirt, the good stuff. And so the way I do this is I don't want to talk to anybody on the telephone. I don't want anybody to send me an email. If you have something to say, you come out to my house and tell me. And so we invited any Bellows Nichols employees who had something to say to come out to the house and talk to me. We had to put up both lines. So many people came out. Okay, so anyway, we're going to move ahead here. I encourage you to pay very close attention tonight, because at the conclusion, we're going to have a quiz. And the winner will get a copy of Fan Chapman's book of letters to the editor. The person with the lowest score gets 2 copies. Actually, that's not fair. I went to the Toadstool a week ago to see how many copies were still there, and I went this afternoon, and the number has changed. It's gone up. People are bringing it back. Ken reads his horoscope. It's one of the things I found. He reads a horoscope, and boy, this is going to be a fun. Here's the horoscope for today, Ken. Beware of former newspaper publishers who often sought your advertising, but to no avail. Ken was born in Jaffrey in the last century. One of the 3 brothers. We all remember his late brother, Ron, who served as the Peterborough town tax collector in the late 80s, early 90s. While Ron was collecting the town's tax money, Ken was the town treasurer dispersing it. Just saying. Great move, Pam. His other brother, Chris, is here tonight from Tennessee. Stand up, Chris. Raise your hand. All the way from Tennessee. Whereabouts? Pigeon Forge. I know where Pigeon Forge is. Dollywood. Right. Pigeon Forge, just north of the Great Smoky Mountains. Pigeon Forge, Seaverville, Gatlinburg, and Dollywood. Good news for you, Chris. Here in Peterborough, you can buy a drink. Ken and Bonnie's daughter, Lori Bailey, from Wyndham, and her husband, right? Yep, and her husband Bill couldn't be with us tonight, but she brought along Emma and Brian. Ken's other daughter, Carrie, isn't here tonight, but she's really proud of her father tonight. I'll tell you that. So early in her 60s, Ken trots off to college, and it doesn't go so good. And UNH is about ready to give him the old geeky bug. But one summer day, while getting an ice cream cone at the old Silver Ranch in Jaffrey, he runs into this hot babe from Peterborough. Bonnie Wheeler, prancing around the parking lot in a micro mini skirt. It's love at first sight for Ken. He announces to his mom that he's going to marry this girl. Mom goes ballistic. Because she's certain that allowing this woman into his life will bring the college experience to a screeching halt, which Ken almost managed to do on his own. But no, this guy who was on the verge of getting his walking papers from UNH suddenly ends up on the dean's list. Ken is in ROTC, so after he graduates, it's time to pay the piper, Uncle Sam. So he trundles off to the Air Force and does his basic training in Colorado and is shipped to Tampa, Florida, where the Air Force taught him a lifelong skill: how to strap a bomb on the bottom of a plane. When he first showed up in Florida, Ken was assigned to the induction center, where he advised new recruits about their government benefits, especially GI insurance. This may be where his natural insurance expertise first bubbled up. It wasn't long before Ken's superior, Captain Crunch, noticed that Ken had an almost 100% record for GI insurance sales. This had never happened before. This guy could sell GI insurance. Rather than ask about this, Captain Crunch decided just to come in and stand in the back of the room and listen to Ken's sales pitch. Ken explained the basics of GI insurance to the new recruits and then said, if you have GI insurance and you go into battle and you are killed, the government has to pay your beneficiaries $200,000. If you don't have GI insurance and you go into battle, the government only has to pay $6,000. Now, said Ken, which bunch do you think the government is going to send into battle first? He cooled his heels in Florida, awaiting orders to go to Vietnam. They never came. Through some bureaucratic follow-up, Ken's records were in error, indicating that he'd already been to Vietnam. By the time the error was caught, Ken's ROTC commitment was over. He bid the Air Force adieu and talked about a charmed life. So let's skip ahead a few years and drop into the Bellows Nichols Insurance Agency. That's where Ken ended up. He wanted to be an insurance agent. That's exciting. Just yesterday, I was up at NCH, and I heard a doctor talking to a woman patient. The doctor said, this is so-and-so her name was. I asked her what bad news for her. She says, what's that? She says, well, we have just 3 months to live. She says, God. What am I going to do? He said, no, you might consider marrying an insurance agent. She says, will that help you live down there? No, but it would seem like it. But I guess if you want to be an insurance agent, you want to know how to do it the very best, you go to an agency that was founded in 1836 and you train under Tom Nichols. One of my life's many privileges was the opportunity to know Tom and Phyllis Nichols. Ken joined Bellows Nichols in 1970 and 1984, Tom Nichols retired and sold the business to Ken. At the time, they had one office in the historical building in Peterborough. Today, they have their headquarters in Main Street, Peterborough, and 4 satellite offices in Hancock, Jaffrey, and Woolwich. This is really interesting. Coincidentally, the very day that Bellows Nichols bought the building, Katie Couric, then of NBC, was up here doing a story with me about the very aftermath. I told her that Ken had just purchased his building on Main Street, and that might be worthy of an interview. Trusting my woman's judgment, she agreed and went to visit Ken. So Ken, she says, tell me about your new office. It's great, he gushed. I can see it from my house. Interview over. I'm told that often Ken will tell the office staff that he is leaving for a few hours, then walk around behind the office building, re-enter, slip into his office for a few hours, and then uninterrupted work time. So tonight we're going to take up the collection by Ken door. At least he now has a back door. I'm told that at the old office, Ken was known to have bailed out the window when unwanted or unscheduled people approached the receptionist. This speaks volumes about the man here, because he wasn't going to force the receptionist to lie and say, he's not here, when in fact he was. So by doing the old bail out the window trick, she could honestly say, I believe he just stepped down. Or, that's a little bit of a fib, the correct response would have been, I believe he just climbed out. But it was going to quibble over exit lines. Here's your horoscope for tomorrow, Ken. By the way, what is your sign? Mercury is rising, and so are the Canada geese. Move your car. You know what I'm referring to? One day, Ken drove to work, parked his Volvo outside the office. First, let's note that he drove to work. It's a distance of 321 feet to his office, but he drove to work. Right, Ekins. He parked his Volvo in the lot behind the building along with dozens of other cars. Took his dog out of the crate from on top of the car. And went inside. Overhead comes a squadron of Canada geese wearing mutual Omaha t-shirts. Someone passed the word along, Ken's car below. And then at least 200 geese pass, you know what. Within 60 seconds, those geese transformed Ken's green SUV into a brilliant streaky white. No other car every bit of it honed in on Ken's car. Everyone in town said it resembled your desk. When I owned the Ledger, our offices were in the old Baptist church on Main Street, now the Mariposa Museum. My office in the balcony of the old building had this wonderful view of the ebb and flow of Peterborough. Here comes Maury Blodgett walking down the street. Here comes Norman Kepler, followed by Phil Wright. Coming the other way, here comes Doris Heckler, and very often here came Ken. Ken always walked to the north side of the street, probably because it was easier to cross Main Street and Grove than the Congress Street intersection. One day, as he was heading home, I noticed he was carrying this big cape, big round metal thing. And I thought, gee, the insurance business must be getting slow. Ken's back to delivering pizzas. The next day, here he came again with this large object. I didn't want to ask him what it was because I was afraid he'd tell me. I didn't have that much time. After a while, I surmised that it was the disk drives from the Bellows Nichols computers. Am I right? Now for the rest of the story. One day, I wanted to get a closer look at this thing he's carrying, so I brought my binoculars to work. Sure enough, about 5:10, here came Ken down the street with this round, circular figure. Pull up the binoculars, full focus a trip to the Caribbean, ended up in Argentina. His BlackBerry was lost in Milford, and only through the tenacity of urban gas was it traced through his daughter, who was living in Pennsylvania at the time, and then back to him. 2 days ago, he lost his Kindle. That was easily traced back to him when they noticed it had only 3 books on it. Make Way for Ducklings, Winnie the Pooh, and Dick and Jane Sell Insurance. Anything beyond a Dixie cup and a string probably exceeds Ken's electronic metal price point. Ken was on the board of trade, the board of the Peterborough Board of Trade, the predecessor to the Chamber. He's also served on the Chamber Board. He's been an officer of the Peterborough Indoor Tennis Club. He's been active in the United Way. He's been a member and held leadership positions with the Civic Housing Trust. He was a lector at St. Peter's Church, so they thought of him every day. And I was just given this as I came up here. In the 1980s, Ken won the insurance industry's Arthur Slosberry Young Agent Award. Is this a script for Saturday Night Live? He became the town treasurer in 1974 because his office was next door to the townhouse. And he volunteered because he liked math. He's still the town treasurer. He's been a member of the Lions Club since before there was a Lions Club, and held various offices over time. I don't know if you remember this, Ken, but I used to be one of the pitchers on the Rotary softball team. And every year there was a big Rotary Lions softball game. I was pitching and Ken was coming up the bat. Bob Condon was our team captain. He came up to me and said, he's a good hitter, usually line drives. Well, that scared the hell out of me. That's the last thing I wanted to somebody. But I lobbed one in there to Ken. He swung, made contact, and that ball came right back at me. However, mindful of Condon's warning, I'd already started to retreat. And I put my glove up, and the ball went right into the glove. Ken's out. Took another step backwards and stepped and tripped over second base. Got the guy who was heading off to third. And then, like a gift from heaven, the first base runner, being a lion, and confused, ran right into me. Out number 3, an unassisted triple play. You remember that, dude? Neither do I. Every Memorial Day and Veterans Day, when Peterborough holds its parade, there is Ken ramrod straight in his Air Force blues marching in the parade. Is it patriotic? You bet it is. But it is also time to show those lining the route. It's been decades since I served, and I can still get in my uniform. I've marched in all those parades with Ken. Let me explain how this works, Ken. You were there because you were in the Air Force. Andy Benoit is there because he was in the Army, Revolutionary Army, but it's still the Army. Ray Pierce is there because he's in the Army. And I was there, but you didn't see me because I was in the CIA. So that's the public Ken Christian, but it's an unseen part of the Christian equation that speaks of the man. Earlier tonight, we had a show of Bellows Nichols employees. Most of them have been there 50 or 60 years. Well, but not that long. It just seems that way. But there's virtually no turnover of Bellows Nichols employees. Either they really like working there, or maybe Ken has taken employee withholding to a whole new level. Doris Heckler told me the story about Ken waltzing into the office many years ago, puffing on a big stinking cigar. He was going through the George Burns period. It's a male thing. We all go through it. Most of us go to 10 or 11. Eventually, Dorothy had had enough. She went to Ken and said, Ken, it's either me or the cigar. That was the end of the cigar period. 12 years ago, he purchased a building on Main Street that is now the Bellows Nichols World Headquarters. That space was once a service station, a restaurant, a maternity shop, and an art gallery. Ken added this huge glass front in the second story. It looks like the botanical gardens of Peterborough. But if you go past it any night after 10 o'clock, you can see the flashing lights of pole dancers. Between Ken's building and like some of the auto bars, we're still there. There's a little escape hatch from the parking lot behind the diner. It's now called Veterans Way. And on the side of Ken's building is a plaque honoring all 5 service branches. Quietly, behind the scenes, Ken working with Pam Brown, Jim Grant, Dick Dunning, Bowen Hatt, and others made that happen. Tonight's recognition is for Ken being Business Leader of the Year. Once again, we are witness to something that sadly may be on the wane in this country. And that something is that a huge part of owning a business comes responsibility, not just to yourself, but to your employees and your community. And how that is played frames one's character. Ken, you have played and continue to play a good hand. You are a genuine asset to this town and region. And I am personally delighted to be able to be the first to officially recognize you as the Chamber of Business Leader.
Thank you. For the record, the sunroof on my Volvo was closed. Today the keys went over. So a quick trip to the car wash, and you put it on. Let's see, Ted covered a lot of stuff, so I don't need that. Well, my wife asked me to keep this short. And don't embarrass her. Well, I'm 50% there. Since Ted did cover a lot, and I don't have a whole lot to say, I'm going to take 20 seconds here. I know you call this a sidebar, I think. But I'm going to speak by 2 grandchildren. Ryan and Emma. Ryan, you're handsome as usual. Emma, pretty as ever. Thank you for coming tonight. And it's nice that you brought your mom with you. Thanks to Jack Burnett, the executive director of the Chamber, and Lorna, the president of the Chamber, to the super secret committee for this honor. Congratulations to Pat Boyd, Citizen of the Year. I'm in good company with the former honorees. I stopped at the town office to look at the plaque. I saw 8 names on it. I was going to read them. Then I looked at the program and I find there are 20 former honorees. Pam, you got to spend some money for that budget. And get the plaque updated. Part of the leader, part of the courage. Business Leader of the Year. Not bad. For a kid brought up in a blue-collar family. Okay. My mother was taken out of high school in the 10th grade, sent to work in the mill. There's At that time, women didn't need an education. They were going to be married, they were going to have children, so my mom loved you. I got my start in business. That went back. I'm going to indulge myself for a minute here. I got my start in business by mowing lawns and shoveling snow, logs and flies. Back then, kids did that for money. You can't get anything. At 13, I was selling night crawls. Good money. I wanted to buy a suitcase so that I could fly to California. With my parents, visit my brother, stationed there, who was on his way overseas. I thought he might reimburse me for the suitcase. But he didn't. My brother Chris made a career in the Air Force, and as you know, he's here visiting from Tennessee. Still trying to figure out why he came up. And I am proud of his dedication to this country. I was going to talk about reinstituting the draft for young men and women. I understand that's not politically correct. So I guess I better. I gave up sports in high school to work to stock groceries in the First National store, Stafford, so I could earn money for college. And one of the things I learned is that in stores we have to front the cans and the boxes. If you go to Market Basket, you'll see young men and women in the aisles pulling it to the front, making sure the labels are there, and it's good practice, good experience. In Nigeria, you come to my house, go to our pantry, and find any can that is not fronted. Rise, my wife, not only that, the fruits are together, the cereals are together, the vegetables are together. Oh, what I learned in high school. I went to UNH, Air Force ROTC, and you know that I spent like 3 years under the palm trees in Florida and Mount Douglas in Vietnam. I was like, I couldn't have gotten involved in clubs and committees without the help of my coworkers. Some of the most professional and dedicated people I know. It's truly a pleasure to go to work every day and be with them. Tim, McMahon, and I are the only two token males in the office. Are 16, 17, I'm off track, women. We affectionately refer to as our wives, because they do keep us on the straight and narrow. They don't nag, they nudge. Thank goodness they do. I think we need it. This past fall, I had a health scare. I ended up in Hanover with surgery and 2+ weeks in intensive care. And then I come here tonight and I'm sitting at a table that has bells and jewels. I had some great trips. Some of which I swore were real. And one of them was to a beautiful restaurant. I'm thinking, couldn't tell you the name of the place. Beautiful, 200-year-old inn. And I walked in, and there were coworkers and friends and classmates and neighbors. And I said, what in the world are you doing here? And they said, well, we're here to celebrate your life. I said, really? I said, don't you normally do that when somebody is gone? He said, well, yes, but we didn't want to wait that long. That doesn't bring you out of the coma, nothing. I was very fortunate. I left there, I went to Keene, Barnum Rehab for 2+ weeks. I came home in November, and with the help of a lot of friends and hopes and prayers, I've been involved in the Wellness Center, doing what I'm told. And I have to work 5 to 6 hours a day. And I could retire. And right now, I'm sticking to it. And of course, my wife, Bonnie, kept things on the even keel at home over the years, never knowing when I was coming home to dinner. Difficult. Sometimes, other nights I'd come home, grab my tennis gear and run. Or I'd say, sorry, I can't stay, I've got a committee meeting. Or, on rare occasions, I'd send back to the office to clean my desk. Needless to say, I didn't make it back many nights. And she did know what to prepare for dinner that night. It was always a Peterborough pizza party. I've seen many of you there, so I know that we're not the only ones. Thank you for our company representatives who are here tonight. We have Peerless, Safeco, Helen Group, Concord General Mutual, and I think that was I highlighted. Great folks, great supporters, have kept us in business, and in turn, I think we've kept them in business over the years. As outgoing president at our state association, that's the New Hampshire Association of Insurance Agents, I challenge my colleagues to get involved, and I'll repeat here. You receive a call from the chamber, the service club, the town, or nonprofit to serve on the committee. I hope you'll say yes. This profession has been very good to me. And I've dedicated 42 years of my life. During that time, I hope I've been able to help others, and I hope you'll do the same. It can be good for you to give a chance to get involved. Thank you again for this honor. I'm truly humbled to be selected and to see my many friends and colleagues here tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, you can melt it down, maybe your premium went up, I'm just guessing. Just saying, Thank you, Ted, very much, Ted Leach, and Ken, congratulations to you. Thank you very much for all that you've done. I did want to give a shout out to Peerless. Who's here from Peerless? There we go. My father worked for Peerless 46 years. PIC all the way. Well, that doesn't stand for something bad. Before we have a couple of really quick announcements, let me introduce to you the person who will give the benediction, the Associate Rector of All Saints Church, Reverend Sarah Robbins Cole. Sarah?
Despite my husband being English, I'm going to have a prayer from Scotsman, Robert Louis Stevenson. Let us pray. Lord, behold our friends and family here assembled. We thank Thee for this place in which we dwell, for the love that unites us, the peace accorded to us this day, for the hope with which we expect tomorrow, for the health, the work, the food, and the bright skies that make our lives delightful, for our friends in all parts of the earth. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Okay, two quick things. The first is, honorees, please remember if you'd like to stay afterward for a couple of minutes for photos, that will be happening. Finally, I would like to thank all the young people here for lowering our demographic. It's always nice, we appreciate you being here. And I want to say to Ryan and Emma, thank you for being here, and I want to ask Emma a question. Emma, when is your birthday? What is it? January 27th. All right, so what we want to do here is, at each table, whoever has a birthday closest to January 27th, please take as our gift the floral centerpiece. Take that home. Okay? Not the candle, not the lantern. January 27th. Right? January 27th. Okay? Congratulations to everyone. Thank you all. Good night.